Hey everybody, welcome to our live show before the LA Auto Show. The LA Auto Show is like right on the other side of that wall over there, and Brian and I will be there tomorrow. So be sure and head down to the LA Auto Show if you're in Southern California. And what should they check out there, Brian? What are you most excited to see?
I'm really excited. We've already seen it, but the new Toyota Prius is going to be there. That
Yeah,
one's
yeah.
pretty interesting. If you don't like the current one, you might like the new one.
Mm-hmm.
And some new models from VinFast. I know we have some people very interested in seeing more about that brand. They'll have two new models in addition to the existing VF8 and VF9. So they're obviously expanding their portfolio. So that's exciting for them,
Yeah.
I guess, if you're interested in the EV space.
I'm intrigued. We actually already had a question here about the VF9 here. Yeah, they want to know more.
Now the problem with this question is I don't think we have all of that information because we have not personally I have not
Right.
been in one, and this will be our first time seeing one in person. And if you look up on the internet, they don't have any of the dimensions interior wise.
Yeah, interior no, but we know on
Yeah.
the outside it's going to be sort of Chevy Traverse sized. It's actually fairly large,
Yeah.
201 inches long, so it's a pretty big three row.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if it was roomier inside than the EQS SUV third row or the upcoming EX90, which are probably going to be pretty solid competitors.
It looks similarly sized to the upcoming Kia EV9 though. I don't, but we haven't seen, of course, that in person.
Yeah, we haven't
We'll have
seen
to
that
see.
one yet. Just about, yeah.
But that one would be an interesting competitor. I feel like they'll be more closely matched up
Mm-hmm.
in terms of price and size, but of course we don't know yet for sure.
If you come to the LA Auto Show, though, you will see the concept EV9. I guess I
Yes.
will adjust things. There we go. You will see the concept EV9 at the LA Auto Show. So if you're interested in seeing that in person, you can go ahead and see that.
Yep. We'll definitely have some coverage on both of those cars at some point throughout the day.
Here's another interesting EV question, and I'm going to say no to this one. Tesla's opened up its charging plug design as NACS, the North American Charging Standard. I am curious about this one because, of course, Tesla claimed a while back that they opened up their charging standard and they didn't really do that, and now they've decided to rename it. I have a feeling nobody is going to use theirs because the current Tesla charging standard is only 400 volts. And so any of the manufacturers are doing 800 volt EVs like General Motors, like Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis conglomerate. They're going to stick with the CCS connector. I just don't see much of an advantage, oddly.
No, especially for current owners. I mean, they don't. It's kind of like having an Apple. People are very,
Yeah.
I like what I've got and it works well for me. I don't care if it benefits anybody else really that much. It's not top of mind, so I kind of get that sentiment. I'm not one of those people because I'm not an Apple user, but it's an interesting position for them because it's not the full integration with. I guess it's not the full like 100%. Like hey, everyone can have what we have. It's
Right.
sort of it's a baby step there, but it's not the full thing yet. So
I would be more intrigued to see Tesla create a CCS adapter the other direction.
exactly.
So you could drive any vehicle to a Tesla stop, use a CCS adapter, and charge with a supercharger station because Tesla is much better at maintaining their superchargers than the other manufacturers.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be getting any traction on the Tesla side there.
Right.
Random Internet is asking a question. They're in their 40s. Two kids outgrowing sedans and hatchbacks focused on value. What would you recommend?
Well, if you don't need something that fast, there's Toyota Corolla Cross. If you need something that's got third row, I don't know. I'm just thinking. So two kids are outgrowing our sedans and hatchbacks. Yeah, I mean,
You mentioned Trailblazer
who
later.
likes the Trailblazer? So
I do like the Trailblazer also.
I liked it too. We're going to see the refreshed Kia Seltos here at the show. That's another competitor to something like a Trailblazer. And from what we've seen, it has a pretty cool looking interior. You like kind of modern tech and a modern design. That interior of the Seltos looks like it's going to be pretty impressive. But we don't think there's going to be a hybrid version. If you're looking for something more fuel efficient, not
Yeah,
so
no
sure.
hybrid at all for that. If you
Yeah.
want a hybrid, there's the Nero, but you have to give up all-wheel drive. So
Exactly.
depending on what you're looking for, do you need all-wheel drive or not? If you don't, you could get 50 mpg in a Nero in a practical hatchback format. Otherwise, you're probably looking at something bigger, like a Ford Edge, I would say. That I really like the mid-size two-row crossover size format. Santa Fe, Edge, Murano, etc. Those are very comfortable. So if the kids are getting bigger, you want extra legroom, you want some extra width, and a big cargo area. That's probably where I would go. And some of the larger two-row compact vehicles are also going to be pretty friendly. Like, the new CRV, I think, is a handsome one. It's not really a standout to me, unfortunately, in the segment, but anything along those lines is going to be pretty good size.
Yeah, and then we spoke recently about the new Kia Sportage. That's got a really big back seat for its size. If you're a fan of the styling, go for it. I'm not as much of a fan of the styling of that car,
Yeah.
but a lot of people seem to like it, as we discussed on some recent live shows and stuff. So I don't know. It's all about your preference.
Yeah, I really wish that turned out to be a miniaturized Telluride, and instead it kind of went in its own direction styling-wise.
Yeah.
Comment here on family cars, minivans being good family cars. I would agree with that. Minivans are definitely solid options, and there's some really good minivans out there right now. I think the only one that I wouldn't get at the moment is the one that we're probably getting a lot of hate mail on. I wouldn't buy the Honda Odyssey at the moment. It just comes across as a little bit old and a little bit compromised. The Sienna's newer. The Pacifica is more family friendly. The Carnival is newer. The Odyssey, I'm not the biggest fan of its third row, and the cargo area is a little bit more compromised. Second row seats are really heavy too.
Yeah, and I've never been in the current Odyssey. I still like the exterior design. I think it still seems pretty modern. It definitely it feels like it's newer than it is. But I mean, my favorite minivan right now is the Carnival, just because it looks a little bit kind of like it blurs the line between SUV and minivan when I show it to like
minivan.
Yeah, it's the swagger wagon that the Toyota Sienna never actually was. And I don't like the way the new Sienna looks.
It's an MPV, a minivan purpose vehicle.
Yes. So that would be my choice. But we're actually going to see a special edition of the Pacifica at the show, which is kind of not that special.
Yeah, it's not that special.
Yeah.
It's going to be a road trip version. It's going to get a little bit of extra equipment and some orange logos. If you have kids in child seats, Pacifica is the way to go because you can actually fold the second row seats forward and get into the third row. Something that I've always found weird with the other minivans is for a family-focused vehicle, they're not really good at the whole child seat thing, which seems odd. And the third row in the Pacifica is by far the most accommodating. But the Sienna is going to be more reliable, and the Pacifica Hybrid is going to be more fuel efficient. Weird twist there. The Sienna hybrid system it's been a little disappointing with hybrid fuel economy. It's still good. It's 30 miles per gallon ish, but it's not that next level where I had hoped it would be. And strangely enough, I thought I was the only one, but actually Autoblog and a number of other outlets, Motor Trend has recently done some testing on it, and they found that Pacifica was more fuel efficient than the Sienna, hybrid to hybrid.
Interesting.
Oddly enough.
Well, they did the hybrid minivan first. You'd think Toyota would have been the first ones to do it, but they were the second to the game. And Kia has been testing a hybrid Carnival overseas. Whether or not that comes to fruition and comes over here, we don't know.
Yeah, they can't build enough hybrids, it seems really like there. So Gary Clark is asking about an Ioniq 6 sighting. You will have to stay tuned tomorrow because there is going to be an Ioniq 6 first look video. I have already seen it. Unfortunately, Brian did not get to see it. I've seen it, I've filmed it, I've sat in it and played with it, etc. And that video will be on the EV Buyer's Guide channel tomorrow, sometime before noon, I think. Cool. Let's go to the Super Chat question here. If I can click on the right Super Chat button. There we go. Currently has an AMG A35. Ooh, that's not bad. I always liked the A35. So we'll be shopping for a sporty compact luxury crossover between SQ5 and GV70 3.5T. Ooh, that is tricky. I think I would get the Genesis.
Me too. I think the Audi's kind of stale at this point. Current generation's been out since 2017. Interior is kind of not as cool as the Genesis interior. If you like ovals, that interior is all oval themed in the Genesis, but it's also a nice interior. We're actually going to see the electric version here at the show.
Genesis is likely going to be more reliable and cheaper to keep around. So cheaper maintenance on that is important. I also really like the Genesis power delivery on that 3.5 liter turbo. And the SQ5's turbo has been a tiny bit disappointing. With this generation turbo, people were, I think, expecting better performance, and there's a little bit of lag. It is one of the few German vehicles that we've tested in any recent time that actually overpromised and underdelivered with acceleration at sea level. And the vast majority of Germans, whether we're talking about an Audi or a BMW or Mercedes, they're faster than the number, and this is one of the few that is not, I think. Okay. Let's go to some of the newer questions here. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm pretty sure we aren't going to see either of these.
Well, they might have an EV9 on stage somewhere, but there's no...
It's going to be the same one we've seen last year.
We've already seen it. Yeah. They did a couple months ago show a camouflage version of the production model, but I don't think we're going to see anything more than that until early next year.
Yeah, so, they could surprise us.
They could, but Ioniq 7,
probably not.
We haven't seen it. We haven't heard a peep about Ioniq 7 yet, which is actually surprising because it's like come on, it's time. Like, let's
get the Ioniq 6 rolling first.
That's
is their
true.
thought,
That's true.
I was also hoping to see Tacoma. It doesn't look like there's going to be Tacoma tomorrow. So, I mean, we're prognosticating through the crystal ball.
Yep.
And there's some things that we can talk about and some things that we can't talk about. So I can't talk about the North American Prius yet, but I can talk about the Japanese Prius because we know that one. I
everybody
can tell
else does.
Yeah, everybody else does too. And I've seen the Ioniq 6 and a new Subaru, which I can't tell you the name of, but you can all read the tea leaves there. And that's about it. The Fiat 500e is coming back. We got official confirmation on that. What else did we get recently?
What else? I don't know. I'm not really. You've covered it all, but the show. What have we got? We got the Genesis electrified GV70, and then the concept, the X convertible concept, which is just like the third installment of that X concept. You have the X Coupe, the Speedium, and now the convertible. But probably not going to make production, but the design cues on that car should be hinting at, I guess, future designs for the company. But that was another thing. That concept I thought was going to be the GV90, which is going to be an all-electric SUV, 3 rows. Everyone was expecting that to be what they unveiled, but it turns out, no, it's a convertible.
Yeah, I have a feeling EV9 is going to be first to production. We'll see the final one first. It will be the first to production. Then we'll probably see the Genesis. Then we might see the 3-row Hyundai. The Hyundai conglomerate does kind of strange things now and then with product planning. Sometimes, well, actually, I would say historically, Hyundai has gone first, but now Kia gets to go first now and then. So that's a kind of an interesting twist.
Yep.
Let's see here. Will you? I forgot one there. But reviewing the new Prius, yes. So we are going to be driving it.
Early December.
Yep, December. So stay tuned for that one. Mopar is bringing the 500e and a Pacifica with orange badges.
Yeah,
that's kind of it.
That's
This is a good question. What non-car brand do you see as most likely to enter the car market? Sony is obviously going to be the first because we know that there is a Sony car teamed with Honda, if you want to count that. So it's going to be a Sony Honda?
Sony Honda Mobility?
Yeah, Sony Honda Mobility.
Don't know if they'll stick with that name, but that's what they're saying it is for right now.
And Honda's going to be building the cars. Sony's going to be doing the software.
Right.
And Honda dealers will be able to service the car, but we don't know how you buy it.
Yeah.
It probably won't be through Honda dealers, though.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And now also, the Lucid Gravity, forgot to mention that. Is that going to be at the show, or is that we just got information? We had the information about it, but I don't know if that's physically going to be in LA.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that one. That's interesting because it's going to be a very expensive EV with 3 rows, just like the Lucid Air. They're claiming that will have the most range in the world other than the Lucid Air. So it's probably like between 400 and 500 miles of range is what they're hinting at. That'll be a lot, but anyway, I digress.
I'm intrigued. I want to see what it turns out to be. Here's a good one. Can't decide between a 2023 Corolla and a 2023 Mazda 3. That's an interesting choice. I would say with the Corolla, go hybrid. Hybrid all-wheel drive, that is really kind of the coolest use case for the Corolla. It's not as pretty as the Mazda 3, but it's probably going to be more reliable. It's certainly going to be cheaper to keep around. It's going to be more efficient. Repair parts are going to be easier to find if you keep it long term. The Toyota hybrid system is incredibly reliable.
Yeah, and I liked it. Now you can actually feel the on the all-wheel drive models, you can feel that electric motor in the back. Whereas before it was kind of like, it's there, but it's not really noticeable. Now it's like, oh, you can kind of feel what's going on, and so it feels a little bit more fun than before to drive. So yeah, the Mazda is definitely a more premium feeling vehicle, especially on the inside. That interior is far nicer than the Corolla's. The Corolla's interior is fine, but it's definitely at the price point that it is. You can tell the Mazda's a little bit nicer. So if you want that sort of more premium upper echelon experience, you can get that in the Mazda, but it's going to be tighter on the inside too.
Yeah,
in dimensions wise.
Yeah, Christine is asking here. This is a good one. Any hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or EV trucks to be at the show other than the F-150 Lightning? There were a lot of rumors that we would see the Ram plug-in hybrid truck, and I think it's not going to be shown there. They might surprise us and pull a rabbit out of the hat, but it does not appear so. It appears that the only announcement is going to be the 500e from Ram. Ford, of course, has the regular hybrid F-150. We have the regular hybrid Tundra. Tundra.
Yes.
And that's basically it. I would say that since we didn't see it here, we probably will see that plug-in hybrid truck sometime next year.
Yeah.
There, of course, are a few EV trucks out there. You know, we're going to probably see the production prototypes of the Sierra EV.
Yes.
Should see those
I
there.
would assume, yeah.
And the Silverado EV will be there, of course, as well. But those are going to be fairly expensive because the only ones launching in those lineups are the 100,000 plus ones. That's where they're going to start. And the less expensive ones are going to come a lot later.
Which is why it's a little disappointing that there is no Tacoma EV or any sort of prototype of that, because we know that's happening, and that would be like the first of the lesser expensive ones to come on or to be announced. But alas, it's not happening yet.
Yeah. And here's a good answer. Is the Ram EV expected to be 1,500 size? Yes. So the answer there is pretty yes. The rumor mill is that Stellantis is, what do they have? The STFL or whatever? I don't
Stella,
know.
STLA.
Stella, yeah, their large vehicle body-on-frame platform.
Oh, that one, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Stella's their car
That's
platform.
the EV,
But anyway, it's their large vehicle body-on-frame platform is Wagoneer sized and 1500 size. So that's going to be the electric thing, and that electric platform will underpin an electric Wagoneer and some sort of electric and hybrid truck. That's the plan. Oh, here's a good one. That's funny. We were just talking about this on the podcast. Do we think hydrogen's viable for long haul fleet stuff? I really think that hydrogen has a good future, but I think it's much longer term than some folks want to hear. Like, I have a feeling that in 20 or 30 years, hydrogen will have a significant place in car sales, in vehicle sales in the U.S., mainly in larger vehicles, longer range vehicles, etc., but not anytime soon. I mean, it's going to be, lifetime of the average, it's my grandchildren's lifetime or something like that, not gerbil or pet lifetime, unless you have a pet parrot, they live a really long time. So like lifetime of the average house cat, probably unlikely, might be beyond there.
I just think also with hydrogen is the experience of having a hydrogen, at least we're talking personal vehicles.
Yes. STLA frame.
Right.
Yeah, frame.
Kind of, yeah.
Stella frame.
Halfway there. But with hydrogen, again, like, the hydrogen experience is the closest we have to the typical gasoline experience. You can't do it at home. You got to go somewhere, fill it up, take 5 minutes at the most. I think it's the alternative to gas that actually people will be more easily able to embrace if it were widespread. Whereas the whole charging a car at home is this completely different experience that no one's used to, and no one can, not everyone can logistically do. So that's what makes it more exclusive. And then you of course add on the fact that they all cost, not all of them, but most of them cost more than the average person can afford. So if hydrogen were more widespread, it would be like such an easy transition.
We hope.
Could be an easy transition for people, but it's just not. We're not going to be there for a while.
Yeah, and the reality is that the people that are buying hydrogen vehicles now are largely the same demographic that are buying EVs. They're single-family home owning, dual income, upper income, middle classy kind of people. So I mean, the demographic is pretty same. But it does have this promise, if it could be adapted to less expensive vehicles, where if you live in an apartment, you could do that because you don't have anywhere else to charge. And instead of spending 30 minutes or 45 minutes at a charging station, you could spend 5 minutes at a hydrogen station. But yeah, nothing is there yet for that. Here we go. What do you think about the Genesis G70? It has been pretty reliable.
I like it. I think it's still, and they're actually, according to rumors, there's going to be another refresh of it. They're not going to fully redesign it in its current generation, because the next generation will probably be a full electric vehicle. They're not going to waste their time giving it another gas variant, so they're going to give it a heavy refresh and give it an all new interior, which is nice because the interior is the area where it's like it's definitely falling behind now. But if reliability has actually not been that bad on that car, and it's still a really good car. It's a good alternative. You definitely will stand out in the crowd if you have one. Sea of Audi A4s and 3 Series and things like that.
Oh, here's a good question. Let's ignite the rumor mills. Did Kia pay for our trip? The answer is no. Actually, Toyota paid for us to come down here to the LA Auto Show. Normally, we attend auto shows on our own, but the reason we said yes to Toyota flying us down here was because it was coordinated with the filming of a concept car for Toyota and the new Prius. So they were kind of all conjoined together. But Toyota doesn't really care what people say about it. This is a weird thing. Car companies will sometimes fly media in for auto show coverage, even if they don't have a product, which is kind of bizarre. I don't think that affects or colors coverage, because I will tell you right here on camera, that I find an awful lot of Toyotas pretty darn ugly right now. So, sorry Toyota for, paying me to say it's ugly, but BZ4X, funky looking, current generation Prius, funky looking. Not a big fan of the way the Camry looks. Corolla's okay. It's a little boring.
It's a little boring.
Sienna's fine. Crown
weird.
is, woo.
It's weird.
Crown is weird.
It's not bad, but it's weird.
With the two-tone thing, Crown is weird.
The
Not a fan.
best looking current Toyota is the new Sequoia. That's my answer.
No. Yes, that's right. Yes. I agree with you.
Sequoia.
Yeah.
That's a good
Tundra
car.
also looks funny. It has like this sort of handlebar mustache thing going on. Sequoia is really pretty.
It's honestly pretty.
Mirai's really pretty.
Mirai's pretty too.
And strangely, Prius is really pretty. Who knew? Yeah.
I want one.
Yeah.
If anybody follows me on my socials, I've been
Prius looks
shouting to the
Prius
heavens about
looks
that.
pretty.
I like it. I could see myself. In that.
So that's a thing. Yeah. Let's see here. And this is probably a good one to the follow-up question. Probably a good one to address here. The Hyundai Kia coverage. It's interesting because they're probably the auto manufacturer that has come the farthest, and I think that's why they get a lot of coverage because they're the Cinderella story.
Yeah.
They have honestly good reliability ratings. I know there are all these drama-filled posts about this problem or that problem, but they're not borne out in the data. So when you look at Consumer Reports reliability numbers, Consumer Reports posts good reliability numbers. And it is interesting that when we're at events like this and we're talking to manufacturers, engineers, etc., and they're asking us what we think of other vehicles, because we're driving everything out there, Toyota doesn't ask about Honda. Toyota does not ask about General Motors. Toyota does not ask about the other car companies. Toyota and Honda, they ask about Hyundai and Kia. Yep. And that is an interesting twist. Yeah. we tell them, when it's good and bad. I mean, Sportage looks like it got beat with an ugly stick until it just couldn't breathe anymore. Yeah. Not a fan of that design. But hey, that's drunk Alex. Only I'm drunk on Pure Life water. So Alex unhinged. There we go. Yeah. Let's move on here. So excited for the Prius. I think everybody's excited for the Prius, to be honest.
I've seen all positive coverage so far.
Yeah, so we will attempt to dance around the Prius without violating the embargo.
Yes.
You go.
Oh gosh, what can I say? It looks good. The Prime is coming back. We know this.
All-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive, but only on the regular. No all-wheel drive Prime.
In Japan. In the Japanese market.
Japan, yes.
That's what we know for Japan.
Yes.
You can squint and see what we're going to get in America.
Yes. And what else? Japan is getting Teammate.
Yes.
Which we can't say say yes or no if we're getting that here, but Japan,
I'm intrigued if we will ever get it. I want to know.
Because nothing here has that yet. And if you don't know Teammate is their
Super Cruise thing.
Super Cruise equivalent, yes.
Yeah. Fuel economy looks to be good. They're saying best ever for fuel economy. Range in Japan is going to be 50% higher than the previous generation. If that translates to the US, it's probably around 37 to 40 miles of electric range. And it looks pretty roomy. But the design is like, wow, Toyota designed that?
Yeah.
I am intrigued because if you read between the lines of the posts online about the next BZ concept, which we've also seen but can't talk about yet, it looks very much like the Prius.
It does. I think, and I'm surprised they went that way with the Prius because it seems like that's going to be the BZ lineup's thing. That sort of claw look to the headlights and the sort of the front, just the front grille. They all seem to have that, except the BZ4X doesn't have that. All the other concepts.
The BZ4X has a little bit of raccoon going on up front with the black parts. It just looks like a raccoon on the front.
It has that hammerhead look to the lights, which is what they call it.
Funky. I like the Prius and what it seems to be doing for their design.
Yeah.
I'm going to be intrigued to see if a Camry turns out looking like a Prius. And this is the first time I've ever thought that I could possibly say this, I hope a new Camry looks like a Prius.
I know.
Yeah? Who'd have thought?
I think there's some positive potential there. So
Prius seems to be faster than the Accord Hybrid. Who would have thought? Yes, it certainly does. But I will say there have been some headlines that I've seen out there that have been clickbaity, that have said Prius is a 6-second car. It will not be a 6-second car in Japan. It is 6.7 seconds for the Prime in Japan. So translate that for America.
And in Japan, the all-wheel drive hybrid is a 7-second car. So you're not far off on the regular hybrid.
Yeah. Thoughts on Camry hybrid versus new Accord hybrid? This is a good one. You didn't see the
I wasn't there,
Accord,
but I mean,
yeah.
I've obviously watched and
right.
absorbed all the information about it. I
Do
mean,
you like the cheese grater?
talking about the interior?
Yeah.
I haven't on any of their new stuff that has that. I don't think that's gonna age.
Not a
well.
fan? Okay.
No, I mean it looks fine now. It definitely is. It kind of I don't know. It looks like an office. Like
But what if, stay with me, you own a pizza parlor and you broke your cheese grater and you needed a little Parmigiano there on your pizza. This is a feature. It's not a bug.
It's it's innovation right there. Yeah.
Um,
I wish they would have done something though. To be serious though, like with, I know I'm gonna bring up Hyundai and Kia, but
oh, you evil person.
Hyundai Tucson or Hyundai Santa Cruz has the diffuse feature in the
Mm-hmm.
design where you can actually have it to where the passenger side gets a sort of diffused bit of air from that design feature in the middle.
Yes, that's true.
I wish Honda had done something like that with the cheese grater, but they didn't really
Right.
take advantage of that.
I will say that the cheese grater, I think, visually looks better than what Hyundai did with that diffuse grate thing, because the Hyundai thing is very flat and the cheese grater has this 3D effect. But the cheese grater is going to be impossible to keep clean.
Dust.
And it's because of that guard there. Basically, there is a mesh grid preventing you from dusting your dashboard.
Yep.
And that was a problem when we had the Civic, because I live out in the country, and so dust is everywhere. That was definitely a problem. Lexus UX non-hybrid gets 32 miles per gallon combined. What would be a cheaper alternative non-hybrid? Oh, non-hybrid. If you're considering a UX, why non-hybrid? You should get the hybrid UX.
Well, that's now the only way to get it.
Which is now the only way to get the UX. Let me think. Cheaper alternatives. There's not really going to be one. I mean, that's outside of the mainstream.
Would a Subaru Crosstrek get better than that?
You'll be around there in a Crosstrek. The HRV is lower.
It's lower, yeah.
And the Seltos, I think, is lower even with front-wheel drive in the CVT.
Smaller engine.
I would ask, why are you afraid of the hybrid? The hybrid is the most reliable form of Lexus UX.
Yeah.
So I would probably go that way. Right Lane Hog, this is a good one. Yeah, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy thing that we've talked about before with sedans. So the construct goes like this. People with families and taller people gravitate towards crossovers. So we should then focus our sedans on the person that wants a sleek and sexy design and better fuel economy and better handling, etc. And so it continually feeds, because then fewer and fewer people are interested in the sedan. This is not a trend that's going to change anytime soon. I mean, the Accord is pretty low slung. I can't think of any sedan that is roomy other than a big luxury sedan. And even the S-Class is not enormous in the back.
Yeah, I mean, the Camry is not terrible as it is, but
It's not
he's
terrible,
already comparing it
yeah.
to that, and it's not great for him. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Buick used to have told you with they could fit Shaquille O'Neal in a lacrosse, even though they actually faked that commercial.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody knows what I'm talking about, they literally like tore it off the rails and pushed it back so they could fit him in those commercials. But that's a car that doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That was funny.
So here's a good one. Will the Prime be manufactured in greater numbers than the RAV4 Prime? Most likely, yes, although we don't have any official data just yet. And the reason for that is that the existing Prius Prime seems to have been built in greater numbers than the RAV4 Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It uses fewer batteries too, so the battery pack is much smaller in the Japanese one.
Right.
If anybody from Toyota's listening, not breaking any embargoes. So probably would be my guess.
Yeah, it's weird. The RAV4 Prime is just like a unicorn. You can't. You can't
it's
sign.
total unobtainium.
Yeah.
It's shocking. I think that somehow, and this strikes me as unbelievable, but somehow Toyota did not expect to sell this many RAV4 Primes.
No, and I'm still not seeing a lot of them. Just because availability is so low, it's hard to.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, it's crazy. That's a good car though. If you can get one, it's good.
Compact Glaciers is asking about the ID Buzz. I haven't heard any rumors. Do you think we'll see it?
I don't know. I didn't hear anything about it. I mean, if it is there, I'm looking forward to see it in person. But I don't know. I assume Volkswagen's going to be there. Do we know if they're even going to be there? We don't
That
know.
is a good question. I don't know.
Let's find that out.
Let's see. JC's asking, what's the best low-cost product for someone who is 6'6"? Your best bet would be pickup trucks.
Trailblazer had a lot of
Trailblazer's not bad in headroom, but it depends on how much torso you've got going on there. Trailblazer is probably a good option on the inexpensive side. Anything boxy is going to be good.
Sport, yeah.
Bronco Sport is excellent on the boxy front. Pickup trucks are going to be, a solid thing. Full-size SUVs, that's going to be pretty much it.
Volkswagen will be there, by the way, so maybe they'll have it. I don't know.
Yeah, they might. And then aside from that, probably we're thinking the Hyundai and Kia products that nobody wants us to talk about because for some reason, and I'm not entirely clear why, but these two manufacturers generally tend to put front seat rails that move further rearward than most. And I don't quite understand who in their design team is tall, but there must be some sort of tall seat engineer there at some point. Let's see here. Are we covering the VinFast Media event? We will be covering them on the show floor.
Because their event is after we'll be here. It's not tomorrow.
And, whoops. So we won't be there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the thing now. I guess now that I say that, will we see those cars? Because I don't think they're revealing them until Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
I
Yep.
think.
That's possible.
You might know what I'm talking about.
I've always been interested in VinFast. I love the design. I think that the pricing is a little high. That's my only concern. But bearing in mind that they are seemingly really targeting more of a luxury audience, I think that the pricing is in line as far as rational competition goes. Now that you can buy the battery, I want to know more pricing details on configurations and all of that before I can make a final judgment, because previously the price tag seemed awfully high for a leased battery arrangement.
Yeah. And for it to be a brand new brand, that's an interesting play. Because it's like, first no one knows you, and now you're going to ask them to pay for a battery when no one else is doing that yet. We'll see how that works for them.
Any word on Mazda CX-90? The word is yes. It will be revealed in January, so it will not be at this show. And I think that we're allowed to talk about that, but we haven't seen it, so it's nothing to break there. But we will be seeing it in
January.
third week of January, something like that. So late January. It's going to be a while till it's on sale, unfortunately. Let's see here. Look at the new Impreza. I've already seen the new Impreza. There's going to be a video about that I was able to walk around, so be sure and stay tuned for that. That's going to come out tomorrow. This is an interesting one. Actually, I got a question from someone that I know at a car company that I probably should not mention, that was complaining about capacitive buttons. But then when I asked, this is a designer, or a compliance person, I should say. And so when I asked, I said, but do customers actually like these things? Because it seems like if it was actually a customer problem that we wouldn't get these things. And the answer that I got was that customers do seem to like them. So, I don't know.
They look cool. I think that's a factor. A lot of people like the design, the way it makes it look clean and modern, and I agree.
It's easy to clean.
It's easy to clean. And I think they've gotten past the whole responsiveness issue, because like earlier, like 2011-12 Fords, they were really bad with that. Like you had to tap like really hard. You had to tap multiple times for them to register. I think they've all figured that out at least. So it's just a matter of, do you care that you can't exactly feel a ridge or like some sort of divide between this button and the next one below that while you're driving if you need to push it. I get that the usability is a little bit of an issue, but I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'm one of those people who likes the design over the functionality of it. I don't know.
So Brad, this is an interesting question. I think this is a good one too. Why trucks went straight to EV so the PHEV stepping stone? Well, it looks like we are going to be getting a plug-in hybrid stepping stone from Ram, so keep that one in mind. There also have been some commercial attempts at plug-in hybrids here and there. The big reason that Ford did not do this was Ford, when they were doing their R&D back then, at that time, the cap was on all things with plugs, the tax credit cap. So there was a lot of consideration from manufacturers about, well, how do we want to use our 200,000 tax credits? And that seems to be a large part of the reason why we did not see a plug-in hybrid F-150 hybrid, which I think would have been pretty easy for Ford to cook up because they already had a plug-in hybrid system based on that same design. We see that in the Lincoln Aviator, for instance. They could have just used that in the F-150, would have fit absolutely no problem. That, I think, is the primary reason. Stellantis seems to be going in a different direction because they want their vehicle to target people that want electrification and want to do truck things. Whereas Ford kind of looks at the Lightning as a lifestyle addition to the F-150 portfolio to reach a different kind of shopper. So certainly a lot of fleet customers have been wanting something like that because they can move over to something with lower maintenance costs, etc. So that's why the fleet version of the F-150 exists. I think for General Motors, they were after whiz bang and flashiness, like fast 0 to 60s, etc. Yeah. And the plug-in hybrids are more of a boring, pragmatic thing, but I think logical for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and then also, I guess if you want to consider Hyundai Santa Cruz a truck, I feel like that will be the next possible option that gets a plug-in hybrid because they've already got Tucson plug-in hybrid and all the other models that have that platform. They could just drop that right in there. So maybe they'll do that, but who knows if demand's there for that truck? I don't know.
Good questions. We don't know.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Ford and Nissan's turbo 3 cylinders? Which is better? I really, really, really love the Nissan 3-cylinder, and I really, really, really hate the Nissan CVT. That is such a weird combo because the engine is fantastic, and from an engineering standpoint, it is really great. The ability to change the actual compression ratio on the engine makes it very efficient. And the CVT is livable. If I were to buy a Nissan Rogue, 3-cylinder is great. It actually has a good sound to it too. The 3-cylinder Nissan Rogue sounds really healthy and throaty. It's probably may sound weird and unexpected, this statement. I think it has the best engine exhaust note in the compact crossover segment.
Yeah, I mean, but even the Trailblazer that I have, the 3-cylinder, and that's not Ford or Nissan, but it also it sounded pretty good too. Yeah, I like that sound.
And that's because the harmonics of a 3-cylinder engine, quite logically, are actually closer to a 6-cylinder engine. And this sounds strange in a way because 4-cylinder and 8-cylinder engines don't really sound like one another. But it's the way harmonically that cylinders interact with one another that makes 3-cylinder engines and 6-cylinder engines sound much more alike. Right. And the way things cancel out starts to get a little strange when you start getting 10, 12 cylinders, etc. But I like the engine. I like Ford's combination of engine and transmission better. But on the engine front, I like the Nissan engine actually a little better.
I haven't had the chance to drive it, so I don't
BMW's 3-cylinder is lovely too.
And where do you find that?
You used to find it in the i8, and of course the Mini product line has the 3 cylinders.
Right.
3 cylinders, it's a very rational engine. Americans have kind of bad Geo Metro vibes with the 3-cylinder, but a 3-cylinder turbo, one should specify. 3-cylinder turbo in the modern formats actually they're really quite good, and we're going to see in the Chevy Trax too.
Yeah. Yep.
Which you'll see for the first time at the show.
I will. Yeah. It looks good in photos. And your video.
Let's see here. What pickups do you recommend to really care about MPG but don't know how reliable the hybrid Ford is?
It's probably more reliable than the other ones.
Yeah, I've not seen any reliability metrics on the Ford hybrid.
Yeah, we don't know.
The Ford Hybrid F-150 does not use the same hybrid system design as the Escape, which has been very reliable. It's an entirely different hybrid.
Is it the Explorer hybrid, though?
Explorer, Aviator, and F-150 hybrid all have the same design. And interestingly, that theory of design is the same theory that Toyota uses on their hybrid Sequoia and hybrid Tundra. Inherently, it is going to be less reliable, I would say, than a Prius hybrid or an Escape hybrid or a RAV4 hybrid, because the design is very different. It's got the turbocharged V6 engine, a 10-speed automatic transmission, and electric motors and clutches. There's more to go on there. But none of those components in their own right are unreliable. And it does appear that Ford's Turbo Adventure has at least initially been more reliable than Toyota's turbos in the Tundra.
That's what it seems like.
Go figure.
And I will say, I don't find the Toyota Tundra hybrid or Sequoia hybrid to be as refined as I'd like them to be.
No. Ford's has definitely had more time in the oven.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. I would say if you're interested in a good blend of fuel economy and driving nature, I would honestly finally say you should take a look at a Chevy Silverado with the 5.3 liter V8. That's a really good combo. It's efficient, it's been relatively reliable, and the interior is finally, not
good.
ugly.
It's good. It's good interior.
Unless you get the base model, then it's still ugly.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see here. Refreshed compass. I have been asking for the refreshed compass for a really long time.
Yeah.
I have it's conspiracy theories here. Maybe this is my Alex on conspiracies. Why don't they want us to see it?
I don't know. How bad can it be? Because it's got a nice interior now.
Looks good. I
It
liked the
does.
previous one.
Yeah, it's a decent engine lineup.
Yeah.
I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Because even when I was in Detroit, they couldn't get me one.
Yeah.
ride
And
the
I
same.
asked for one. I tried hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, if there's going to be one, it's going to be in Detroit.
Nope.
Laminated signed window glass.
Hmm.
Are you? Let me think here. How up are you on your spec sheets? Where can we find that in inexpensive vehicles? Like a Venza has laminated side glass, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you consider Buick that lower tier, but most Buicks have some level of laminated side windows, at least the front side windows. I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
Well, here's an excellent one, so we can show our rage. Are any dealer markups that you would consider scammy? All of them. Every single one of them is scammy. Paint protection, yep. Lifetime powertrain warranty, absolutely. PDI, that too. Just random dealer markup. The extra Wednesday adjustment. The sorry I need to see my manager. The let's get out the Foursquare form. All of them are scammy.
The all-weather package that's
The
like
yeah.
$5,000
These
carpet mats.
yeah, and the mysterious the WeatherTech mats that are like $5,000 somehow.
I really feel, because I have some friends who have been like car shopping and they're like, I have to right now because XYZ, my current car is dying or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's a bad time because one, demand's so bad that dealers think they can get away with it and people keep doing it, so they're gonna keep charging it. And if you need a car now, you're going to have to deal with fighting to find the ones that won't do it. There are resources for you to use to help find dealerships that won't do it, but you might have to go somewhere out of state to actually make that happen.
The alarm, the dealer installed alarm.
Yes.
I've been at a dealer where they were like, "Oh, dealer installed alarm," and I was like, "Well, I don't want that," And they're like, "Oh, it's already on the car." Well, I'm not paying for it, and you get out, and they're like, "Oh, well, hang on, it's probably not on the car yet." So clearly, they were just going to put one on there. Yeah, none of that. All bad.
Sleazy. That's a good word.
Oh, nitrogen in the tires. Actually, nitrogen in the tires, that's a good thing, but it should not be very expensive. No. And you can just go to Costco and have nitrogen put in your tires. Because nitrogen does not expand and contract as much as just regular air, even though air has a lot of nitrogen in it. You actually will get a more consistent tire pressure across temperatures and seasonal changes, etc. if you fill your tires with nitrogen. I'm good on the nitrogen one, just not for whatever the dealer is gonna charge you on that one. Here's the one I like too. High-end features coming to cheaper cars.
360-degree surround cameras, like the bird's eye cameras, those are starting to trickle down into like Nissan Versa, I think, offers it.
Yeah, Nissan's been really aggressive on the 360 cam thing. That was like one of their big bugaboos for a while.
Yeah, and even if it's not stitched together well, at least you have it.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I want ventilated seats. That's getting to be more popular, but not as popular as it should be, I think.
And like heated rear seats is sort of a thing now that a lot of cars offer. Let's see.
Ventilated second rows would be lovely. That's
trickling
we're getting
in.
that trickling
But
in.
again, the ones who are doing that, Hyundai and Kia.
Yep.
You can hate on them all you want, but they're innovating in that regard. So. What else?
So on the another CX-90 question. So come back in January. We will see the CX-90 in January, not at the LA Auto Show, rather, unfortunately. So that's a bummer.
Yeah. But we know the inline 6 is confirmed. They just confirmed that the other day, which we knew already, but they did that little teaser. So they're giving you tidbits here and there.
Yeah. Do you think the refreshed Prius will steal thunder from the Nero? Do you think that's the same shopper, like hatch versus sedan looking thing?
Well, price-wise, it might.
We don't know pricing on Prius.
We don't know, but looking at the current price.
What does Prius start at now?
It's not bad. I mean, I was just pricing out earlier because the Nero starts at what, 26.7, I think.
Prius,
26
Prius is 25.
Okay, so it's a little less.
And then let's see. Nero is 26,490.
Okay. Yeah, they're different shapes
Yeah.
for sure. If people want one, they're not going to want the other. I feel
Yeah,
like.
if you want that crossover-y vibe, the Prius isn't going to do it for you.
No. It's going to be practical. It's still going to be a hatchback. in
I
Japan.
would not be surprised if Nero ended up handling better.
What was the width on those tires
Can't talk about it.
on the Nero?
Oh, on the Nero. 225 width.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
If you can find a Japanese market Prius specification, which you might be able to find now, you can probably answer this question on the handling, but we can't talk about it just yet. So, let's see here. Moving on to the most recent question here, as VW improved their tech. This is, I think, a area where VW has lagged, I think, and Audi has lagged as well. I really used to love MMI, and now lately it's starting to feel a little
Stale.
old school.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ID4 did get a refresh, right?
It did. It's getting a larger screen, but they're sticking with the sliders. I think the touch sliders that are. I don't know if they've added the illumination, because that was my problem with it. You couldn't see what was happening at night.
Yeah, that's true.
Other than
was a
that,
problem.
it still was kind of. I was fine with it. And I know some people were earlier saying like, oh well, the gloss black that you get on capacitive touch buttons, they scratch and get dusty easily, and they fingerprints easily. I do agree that is annoying. I don't like that, especially if it's going to be around places that you're going to touch that aren't even buttons. Mazda's a big. They have a lot of that going on. That gets annoying. It's like I get press cards that are Mazdas covered in scratches. I'm like, this is a brand new car, and it already looks old.
Yeah, piano black is just overused, and it
Yeah.
scratches so easily. That's a problem that we've had with things already. Yeah. Someone was inside the EV6. We have a long-term EV6 still at the moment, and it's like week one with the car, and things are a little dusty inside there, and passenger hops in the car, and they're like, "Oh, it's dusty," and they like run their hand over it. No, and now there's scratches. So that's a bummer. Live in Canada daughter is going to get the driver's license soon. Practical and reliable small SUV. I would go with Corolla Cross, I think. If you can wait for the Corolla Cross hybrid, I would do that with the understanding that Toyota's all-wheel drive hybrid systems feel a little funny in the snow. They're still snow capable, but the feeling is a little peculiar. But 37 miles per gallon is what we're going to get in that one.
Yeah.
Not on sale yet, though.
No.
And no pricing info yet.
No. It looks better than the regular
Yeah.
one too. I think.
But it's
that's
probably
debatable.
going to be $27,000 to $28,000.
Yeah.
That's the rumor at any rate. Almost 40 miles per gallon, so much lower operational costs than any of the competition, and likely the most reliable entry in the segment.
Honda HRV would be a decent option. If you want.
HRV's fuel economy is not great. I was a little disappointed, actually. I just had the HRV last week, and it's a little boring. It's a little small inside, a little big outside. It doesn't handle as well as the Corolla Cross, which I was quite surprised by. And it's a little loud on the inside. I like the interior design more
'Cause you
than the
have it right
Corolla.
now, right?
Yeah,
You
I
just
like
have
the
one?
interior design a little bit more in the Corolla Cross, or sorry, in the Honda.
Yeah.
But the reliability and pricing is better on the Corolla Cross too.
Yeah, Honda's pricing has gotten weird. All the new stuff that come out this year, it's like they're costing more, they're giving you less at the low end.
Trailblazer is really a good
Trailblazer's
option, I would
good.
say too. So,
Yeah.
Trailblazer, you get the 9-speed automatic if you do all-wheel drive. You do lose some fuel economy because of that, but the interior is incredibly practical, especially that
Yeah.
fold flat front passenger seat. So, if you're looking at this as a longer-term vehicle where they're going to keep it for a while, go off to college or something in it, that could be really handy for moving. But let's see here.
My Trailblazer video just went live today, so go check that out.
Yeah, you can go check that out.
But I really like that 9-speed automatic, so that's why I would get the all-wheel drive anyway, just because that transmission is GM's really, really good in-house transmission. You can barely tell it's there, and once it's up in the higher gears, it's very much fades into the background. It's no fuss. I like that transmission a lot.
You do get the latest and greatest, and I think better safety, active safety tech, like driver assistance stuff, in the Honda and the Toyota, though.
True.
The Seltos, I think, is also a really good option. Reliability is a little bit more of an unknown since it's a relatively new vehicle, and we still don't have good metrics in because it's, 2 years old, 3 years old, something like that now?
Around that, yeah. And the new one's about to come out too, so it's like
Yeah, and there's going to be a redesigned one here tomorrow, refreshed one.
yeah.
So that might be a good alternative as far as the active safety
And
tech goes.
Crosstrek, yeah, Crosstrek could be on
Crosstrek is good, but if you're concerned about reliability, Crosstrek has not fared well. it depends on the reliability metrics you look at. Some metrics put Subaru below average and some a little bit above average, but generally Subaru's had some hits and misses, and long-term maintenance costs are going to be higher on the Subaru side of things, especially versus a Corolla Cross Hybrid.
You could also, one last one, Volkswagen Taos, but that's probably not as reliable, is it? I would say it's Volkswagen in general is probably not.
The worst car I've ever driven or reviewed. Ooh. That is a tough one. We might have to come back to that after we think for a while on that one. Let's see here. Is Honda going to add a hybrid for the Pilot? I have heard no. Have you heard any rumors to the
I
contrary?
haven't heard anything, no. And you would know more because you've already seen it and talked to them about it. But I don't think. Which is surprising. Like, Highlander, it does well. And I don't know, you think they'd want to compete with that, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because they could use a more fuel efficient option. Because it's still going to be a V6 for the new one. So, Highlander now has the turbo, so it's going to get even better fuel economy without that hybrid. So it's like, you'd think they could have gotten into that segment there, but not really.
Yeah.
Worst car?
Worst car.
I've only been doing this for a year, so I have a smaller list to choose from, so I should have an answer for you shortly.
I would say that there are few bad cars. There are really badly priced cars. And a lot of my gripes come down to some of that. Like, why is this that much? That's more of my problem.
Okay, so now you're saying that Toyota Tundra and Sequoia. Disappointing. They were the most disappointing for me this year. Design-wise, Tundra's a little bit worse, but Sequoia looks great. But on the inside, you're paying 70-something.
Sequoia was more of a disappointment for me.
Sequoia was worse because it was just like that interior is not spacious. That, for me, the hybrid system is not refined enough for $70,000+.
Yeah.
Disappointed. That was the most disappointed I was in a new car this year. I don't know if anything's been bad, per se.
Bad, no. I would say that's a really tough one. And here's the thing.
EcoSport. Did you drive Ford EcoSport?
The EcoSport wasn't great, but it was cheap. And, if it's cheap enough, I'm okay with something like an EcoSport. I think that's the big thing. And that's, when you take a look at certain Mercedes models, you think, wow, is that really worth that much more? I had an EQS SUV for $121,000 this last week, and it did not have a heated steering wheel. And you can get a heated steering wheel in a Chevy Trailblazer for $25,000 can get a heated steering wheel. So it's things like that where you're just like, that is a really bad product decision somehow. And then there are products that may not be right for the American market, but might be right for someone. Ford Transit Connect, I thought was adorable. Apparently no one else did. So that didn't work out so well.
I liked it.
Some cars can be fun in their own way, but terrible to live with. Like an Alfa Romeo 4C was the most bonkers, insane, cool thing you can drive around for a while. It's probably not going to be very reliable. Let's just be nice there and say that. It's probably broken a lot. And it was very uncomfortable, and the design was stupid. But yeah, that's that. And then I would say some reviewers tend to be very, very negative all the time without thinking about how it's going to be used. And this is my biggest complaint, I think, about some car reviewers. A person that cannot afford more than $30,000, it doesn't matter how much nicer a $40,000 car is because you cannot buy one because it's too expensive. So it just does not matter. And does it work in that price range? Is it going to be functional for you? That's more important than, does it have nicer leather on the door? Is the dash soft touch or whatever? Does the door have a nice sound to it? If you can't afford one, it's absolutely immaterial. Or if you just don't want to spend the money, because that's entirely possible. Maybe you can afford it and you just don't care.
Yeah.
So, any news on the Lyriq?
News? I mean,
we drove one, but have you seen that? I haven't seen any out around.
I mean, it's available. It's just...
Well, is it available or is it available?
22 is gone. Like, they're on to 23s now in terms of reservations, but I have not yet seen one in the wild, so...
Yeah, that is a good question.
I would love to. I wasn't there with you to drive it, so I haven't driven one yet. But somebody asked about their quieter, and somebody up there earlier was like, oh, I can see it. Is the Lyriq quieter than an X5 S-Class SUV, or just S-Class, or the iX, and you said it was the quietest thing you've ever driven, or one of them.
It is one of the quietest things I've ever driven. I don't know if it's quieter because the iX or the X5 is very, very quiet. I'll have to be able to drive that on the same roads that I do everything else to really tell you. Unfortunately, that's the problem. Cheapest new EV with the rebate. That should be the Bolt still, right?
Bolt for sure, unless Nissan Versa or
Leaf.
Leaf.
That's true. Leaf. It's gonna be Leaf or Bolt.
Yeah, I think it's Leaf then. But, well, Leaf went up in price because they dropped the base trim. So it's closer to Bolt now than it was.
But those two are still built in North America, so they'll get half the tax credit. But rather surprisingly, the Bolt's not going to get the full one.
No. Some people I saw recently reporting that it is, and it's like, oh, actually, no, it's not.
Yeah. There was a lot of predictions that it would be getting it, and then Mary Barra, their CEO, actually had a press conference, and she said that they would qualify in 2 to 3 years. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Automotive industry in 8 years, what will it look like? Any predictions? Bigger screens.
There will be we already have seen this, but there will be very few sedans left by then, I think. Very, very few. And if they are sedans, they'll have liftbacks of some sort, and they'll be lifted.
Yeah.
Maybe.
My prediction would be we won't see... Let's see how correct we are. Someone can find us in 8 years. I would guess that the Altima will be dead. I think Altima and Maxima, I'm assuming they're going to be
Maxima's going to go electric, I feel like, next. I don't think it's going to return as a gas car.
Yeah, I think it's not going to return as a car. That's my assumption. I don't think so.
The Leaf isn't either. The Leaf's, it's a hatchback. But
it's a hatch,
It's coming back as a small crossover, apparently. Accord's sticking around, obviously, for at least 5-6 more years. Sonata's going away.
I think out of pride, Accord and Camry will still be
They'll
around.
have to, because they're the ones, like they're the two.
I think we might see some smaller pickup trucks, some compact-ish trucks that are 200 inches long, so not really compact, but Maverick-sized trucks. I think we'll see more competition there.
I think it's things are getting more positive looking for a small Chevy like Montana type truck coming here. Those types of things. And we
probably will see.
Hopefully a Ram Dakota.
We'll see more plug-in hybrids, probably.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I feel like we haven't seen enough of them. Like, I feel like there could be more, but a lot of people still don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misinformation and dealers are a problem with this. And we've talked about this before, where salespeople don't even know how to explain what a plug-in hybrid is, and therefore they lead customers astray. I know somebody who went to go buy a RAV4 Prime, and the dealer said, this is an electric vehicle, you're going to be paying X, Y, Z, you're not going to be able to charge it anywhere, blah, 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 go get something else. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. They don't know.
Yeah.
There's not enough education on what they are, so I feel like that's where we need to fix things.
Here's a good one I do get asked a lot about Solterra and BZ4X. You've been in the Busy Forks, and I've been in both. I actually think that they're just fine for their price tag. Some people get hung up on the availability of faster charging in the Mach-E or the availability of this or that, but these two vehicles actually have about the same DC fast charge rate as the base Mach-E. Base Mach-E is only slightly faster.
The front-wheel drive is faster, though.
Yes.
The single motor.
The single motor is faster than the Lightning, but the base Lightning only charges 114 kilowatts, so it's really only a tiny bit faster than even the all-wheel drive.
It's 150 for the front-wheel drive.
150 for the front-wheel drive, and the Solterra is 100, and the all-wheel drive Busy Forks is 100. But I think that they're fine because the only all-wheel drive EV in the US that's less expensive is the ID4, and it's only a tiny bit less expensive. So if you want all-wheel drive and you want ground clearance, which you will not find in the ID4, so if you want 8 inches of ground clearance, actually over, some all-wheel drive ability for mild off-roading, and you want it to be electric, that's kind of it right now in the US. I mean, Rivian is the next thing that gives you more ground clearance.
True.
Kia
EV9 will probably be the next thing when that comes out next year, but...
I don't know, it's hard to tell what kind of ground clearance we're going to get there. I'm going to be surprised if it's going to be much over 6 inches. I think it's going to be fairly low to the ground for aerodynamics. That is the surprising thing about EX90 from Volvo, though. It's about 8 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Highlander or Pilot? Bearing in mind we haven't driven the Pilot.
Current Highlander versus outgoing Pilot, I choose Highlander. I don't know about Pilot yet.
New Pilot?
We gotta drive it.
If you love LCDs at all, I would say Highlander.
Yeah.
The Pilot does have surprisingly small screens.
Yeah, the Accord gets bigger ones, but
Mhm.
and like everything else in smaller classes from other brands get bigger screens than what the new Pilot gets. It's very strange that they didn't go
Mhm.
big on their largest car.
But if you're more of a pragmatist, then Pilot is going to have a bigger and roomier third row, most likely. We don't have official specs. It certainly has a larger cargo area, and it will maintain the 8 seats in the top trim, which is definitely unique.
And the V6, as we covered in there, as you
Yeah.
covered in your Highlander video.
Yeah.
If you
If
like
you-
that feel,
Yeah.
it's still in the Pilot.
And the Highlander's 2.4 liter turbo is not great. It's pretty rough. I would get the Highlander hybrid.
Yeah.
And maybe this is Toyota's method of making people move to the hybrid.
Well, even Honda's
It's
doing
all a
it.
plot.
Even Honda's doing
Yeah.
that whole thing where they're like, okay, the
Mhm.
CRV hybrid, we're doing this plan where people who get a CRV hybrid will have some sort of incentive to bump up to the Prologue when that comes
Mhm.
out.
That's true.
Some weird
Yeah.
like transition plan they're doing, which that's an interesting concept, I guess. But we'll see about that car when that comes out.
So, Greg, here's the thing. I would say that if you're shopping for a Solterra, the Ioniq 5 and EV6 is probably not going to be a cross for you because if you value the classic Subaru vibe, if you want the boxier format, the cargo area is bigger and more accommodating. The interior is definitely boxier. And we have that ground clearance. The ground clearance on an EV6 is very, very low. Same with an Ioniq 5. That's how they get to that really great efficiency. And the Solterra is much higher off the ground. Theoretically, supposedly, we have long lifetime batteries. And that is the interesting twist, is that Toyota was saying that their engineering design parameters for that battery lifetime was extremely aggressive as far as the amount of capacity that it will still have at the end of 10 years. And we don't see that same commitment from Hyundai and Kia, I would say. 2025 will be an exciting time for EVs, blah, blah, blah. What do you think Tesla in this landscape competition is good? I think Canoo will be bankrupt. I think Rivian will have some less expensive models, and they'll be just fine, I think.
Well, they won't because I just said that the R2T and R2S will be delayed till 2026.
Oh, 2026. Whoops. So there we go.
Not Rivian.
But I think Rivian finance-wise is just fine because they got a lot of cash in the bank.
Yeah.
I think Tesla might have a final production version of the truck by then. Maybe. Maybe.
We'll
Let's
see.
hope.
We'll see.
What it will look like, I don't know.
And we should by then have some idea of, because the brands that have claimed they're going all EV, like Buick, Genesis, Audi, probably Audi will not have that bandwidth yet, but a couple of the brands will have a good idea of what their lineups are going to start looking like that are all electric by then. That should be interesting.
Yeah. So here's a good one. Bugs, recharge time is very important. I would agree that it is important in some windows, but it depends on how you look at it in a way and what you're doing with your EV. The optimum EV use case is you charge it at home, and it doesn't matter so much how long it takes to charge. The average EV, mind you, and we're talking averages, so obviously there are use cases on either side here, but the average EV is driving to office, driving to work, doing a weekend thing, whatever, and it's coming home and it's charging. And it's like high 90s, like over 95% of charging sessions occur either at home or at the office. So in those use cases, you're not ever DC fast charging your EV. So for some EV owners, and again, this is just some, but for some EV owners, DC fast charge times are completely immaterial. They just don't care. My next door neighbor, I think, is a really good example of that. He has had 2 Chevy Bolts now, and he has never DC fast charged either one of them, and he still charges using his level 1 charge cord. He is a braver person than I. And this is something that really stuck with me lately, a logical thought process that if you really think about this, and I'm in the industry and I didn't want to think this way, but my next door neighbor who's not actually said, well, let's pencil this out and see how I use the car, and do I really even need a level 2 charger? He decided he didn't because he starts the week with a full battery and 260 miles-ish of range in his Bolt, and he drives 50, 60 miles, comes home, plugs it in on level 1. The next day, it's not fully charged, so he goes out a little bit lower. And the next day, he goes out a little bit lower. And the next day, he goes out a little bit lower and a little bit lower. And then on Friday, he still has 100-something miles of range, so he can go to the grocery store wherever he needs to go. Comes home, plugs it in, and by Monday morning, it's full again. So depending on how you use your EV, it may or may not be important. And I would argue that if you're a road trip warrior, then very few EVs are really going to fit your lifestyle. It's really this occasional use case situation where, I don't daily day trip my car beyond 50 or 60 miles, but I want to drive to Los Angeles every month to go visit a relative, or every 2 months for whatever. That can be a little bit trickier. And if you're doing it that often, then yeah, the faster charge times are going to make that a lot less painful. But if it's a yearly journey and you spend 30 minutes instead of 18 minutes DC fast charging, is this really the end of your life?
Yeah. I think another profession to look at, and I'm sure other similar examples, but say you're a realtor, a real estate agent, and you spend your day driving around to listings to show people, and you want an electric car. That's where having it as a daily driver with a good charging speed would actually come in handy, because you will need to save time so you can get to your next listing, or some kind of job like that where you actually have to drive around town for work every day. That's where the charge times will probably be more important, but that's not everybody. So.
Yeah, and this is a really good point. A lot won't be able to charge at home, and this is my problem with these predictions that we will somehow burst into 100% EVdom. I love EVs. I own EVs. I've had hydrogen cars. I am way down the green rabbit hole. I live off the grid. But this is definitely a problem. If you live in an apartment or a condo or even a lot of townhomes, you might not be able to charge at home. Or you might not want to spend the money to charge at home. And that is perfectly valid. I would argue that if we as in a society, as a global we, if we really cared about EV adoption, EV charging at the office would solve a decent portion of this, but this is not going to fix people that live in an apartment and work from home, like Brian lives in an apartment, works from home. So all the EV charging at my office that we let our employees use, it's not going to help Brian because he works from home. So that's a problem.
And I work in an apartment that's old, and I've asked my landlord, I'm like, have they ever considered installing it? And they're like, we actually logistically cannot install them because of my building is it's on the National Register of Historic Buildings, so they can't do it because of legal reasons. But other newer apartment complexes, they'll add them, but there's like 3 chargers.
I mean, they could put an island in the parking lot if they wanted to, but now we're talking $30,000, not $3,000.
Exactly. So it's like, some of them just don't want to make the commitment to do it, and it's like,
But an interesting twist, and I hear this a lot, is like, some of these don't matter because EVs charge at night. And if you really wanted to make your EV as green as possible, then you don't want to charge it at night, because guess which power sources are not running at night? Solar, wind generally fail or lowers down at night, etc. So even in areas like our office in San Jose, where we deliberately pay extra to get 100% renewable sourced electricity from PG&E, the way they do that is that at night they're pulling powers from a massive battery bank in Moss Landing, California, and that's where the power comes from to power the green energy customers in the Bay Area during the night. But if you charged your EV during the day, then the power is going from the solar panels and the big solar farms straight into your EV. So this actually, I would say, incentivizes or should incentivize employers that really cared about this to provide EV charging at the office. And eventually we'll have a video out on that, because we do that. We finally have an employee with a plug-in hybrid. We're so proud. And he charges at the office. And so we had to figure out how to actually account for this and deal with that. But it is something that even small businesses can do. So, we have a Juicebox Enterprise unit, and you can scan your RFID card, and then at the end of the month, we can payroll deduct the cost of EV charging, and we can subsidize it. So we subsidize our EV charging 50%, and the employee pays 50% for the charging. So that's a really great solution that I think more companies should explore, because that's going to be an important component of this.
And that goes back to, if these are concerns you have, honestly, a plug-in hybrid is probably what you should be looking at anyway, not a full electric vehicle.
Here's a good one. Details on this are a little bit sketchy, but it appears that Pilot may have more room than Telluride when the second and third rows are folded. It definitely has more room behind the third row, but it does not appear to have more legroom than Telluride, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, in your video, you looked like you weren't terribly tight back there. It looked like it was all right.
And sorry about skipping over this question a little bit earlier. So I know you've asked it lots and lots of times here. So let's just get to you. Telluride, Palisade, or Traverse, or Toyota. Highlander can be in there.
I think the Palisade is the best value, unless you need the hybrid, and Toyota would be the only option. So
I would say it depends on how much room you need. I actually am really bullish on the Highlander hybrid because the fuel economy is fantastic. So your operational costs are going to be much lower over your ownership cycle. If you need the room, I think at the moment, Traverse is good on the cargo area, but legroom is actually better. Realistic usable legroom is better in Telluride and Palisade, whichever pick your flavor of box that you want.
Right.
But if you're looking for reliability, fuel efficiency, and a usable third row, not the greatest, but usable, I would go Highlander. And the pricing is really good on the hybrid, I would say.
Yeah. And yeah.
Also, lower markups on Highlander right now because the Telluride is just absolutely batcrap crazy, out of control. Yeah, what is going on at the Kia dealers? So that's a problem.
I do have a Traverse review coming out eventually, and
Mm-hmm.
I did like it. It's just obviously it's older. The one thing that is interesting about it, I will say, is it's the only one left that doesn't do the tablet style screen in the dashboard. Everyone else, of course, has switched to that, and they still have the hidden cubby behind the screen that pops up vertically. I thought that was cool, but they will, for the next generation, they'll get rid of that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
Here's a good question. So have we narrowed down the cars for our next long-termer? Outlander is still high on the list. A lot of people wanted the Outlander hybrid, plug-in hybrid, so that is still on the list. Also on the list are Tucson and Sportage plug-in hybrids. I think some people want us to know if they're going to burn down my house or something. And perhaps a Ford Escape plug-in hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Although I kind of want it to be all-wheel drive, so that kind of limits, throws the Escape out of there.
The Outlander is all-wheel drive, right?
Yeah, Outlander's kind of intriguing.
I like the Outlander.
I'll be driving the Outlander in December, so be sure and stay tuned because I'll be able to drive the Outlander plug-in hybrid in December, and then we'll make that final decision. We're going to probably put it to a poll, and I don't know. Should we follow the poll?
I mean, I think you could get a lot of video content out of that car, and I think it's unique enough that maybe people are curious about it. You guys should just let us know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's this much interest after I've driven it, and there are other reviews out there on it. Pick Durango or CX-9 for a family of 4.
4.
I would say just generally, and this is as a Durango owner, mind you. I would say in general terms, just a generalized question of family vehicle. Neither one of these vehicles would be my top pick for family vehicle. Family vehicle that you need to tow with would be Durango. Family vehicle that you like the look of a CX-9 would be YU CX-9, because I think the CX-9 is great looking, it's fun to drive, etc. But there are some really good options out there.
Yeah, and I used to think the CX-9 when it came out had the best interior, but it doesn't anymore. So if you want,
it's still really good though.
It's good, but
yeah.
It's not the most spacious on the inside.
No,
it's definitely not. The materials quality aren't as good as some of the competitors now.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Highlander, I think, is a nicer interior.
I do like the fact that in the CX-9 you can have one child seat or booster seat latch anchored into place and still get in the third row. So that would give it an edge over the Durango in terms of that. If you want a bonkers V8 engine, clearly that's only in the Durango, and so that's an entire reason to buy a vehicle, because the 392 is lovely. That's why I bought one. But I would say family pick in this segment. I think we'd have to come back to the regulars of the Pilot, Highlander, Palisade, Telluride. And Highlander Hybrid's really high on the list. Actually, in our recent crossover podcast episode, Highlander Hybrid made it all the way to the end, to be kicked out by
Kia Sorento.
Kia Sorento of all things, yeah. So there you go. But
I would wait for CX-90. I would wait to see how that turns out. So January, we'll let you know what we think of that.
Let's see here. Odyssey versus Expedition. That is quite the combo. Odyssey's going to be way more fuel efficient. Can you think of any sales reasons to buy the Expedition?
Ooh. Well, I don't know. I think they'd still look kind of cool, but I don't know. They're space-wise in the interior. Unless you get the Expedition Max, you're not going to get more cargo space than the Odyssey. I don't think. It's just the Odyssey's just going to be easier. It's lower to the ground. It's you said more fuel efficient. Probably quick. No, I don't know if it's as fast. That matters to you. Still just a naturally aspirated V6 versus the turbo V6 in the Expedition, but I don't know. Do you like a boxy car or a minivan? That's kind of the decision maker right there.
Here's a really good one, and I think this fits with a lot of the sort of not misinformation, but people not really paying attention to the substance of what car companies are saying. Do you think that in 2035 companies will have gas cars but not sell them in the US market? 2035, basically every car company except for a very small number of companies like maybe Volvo and of course the electric startups, every single one of them will have a gasoline car to sell everywhere in the United States. There will be gasoline powered vehicles sold in California in 2035. California's zero emissions mandate, quote unquote, is really more of a recommendation than anything because there's absolutely no penalty. Also, even the way that California has designed a ZEV allows plug-in hybrids, which are certainly not ZEVs. So, maybe there will be a time where in California you could only buy a Prius Prime and you could buy a Prius somewhere else. And
to quote Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yeah.
it's more of a guideline.
yeah, it is more of a guideline, really. So that's the important thing to keep in mind. And even Volvo is still selling and making gasoline vehicles. So there's even likely going to be a variant of the EX90 that is going to be a plug-in hybrid. So there will be lots and lots of gasoline and diesel vehicles to choose from everywhere in the United States. It is going to be a very slow roll to get from 3% of new vehicle sales in the US that are plug-in hybrids and EVs combined to 100% if we can even ever get there. So that is a monumental lift, and it's not going to happen by 2035. EV convertibles. I think Polestar's the only one that we've heard of, right?
Has a one that we know is coming to production. Yeah, it's just Polestar. Like we said earlier, Genesis just showed up a concept one, but chances of that one making it to production is pretty slim.
EV vans, Ford.
ID Buzz.
Yeah, ID Buzz.
Eve Transit, which is already out.
Isn't there going to be Mercedes, or did we?
It'll be
is those still
EQV.
rumored?
There's EQV in Europe, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
that's probably not coming here, at least not anytime soon.
What else?
I would say the Pacifica will probably be
That's
the
true.
the next closest thing to get one, or the next soonest one to get.
Yeah, there
electric
have been
version.
rumors that we should see an
Yeah.
all-electric Pacifica in this next generation.
Because
so-
Chrysler is one of the brands saying they're going all electric, so I feel like
Yeah.
that will be the first car to
Yeah.
get it.
And that's one of those things. Like there will be brands that will be all electric, but the company that we think of as Chrysler, which includes Alfa, Maserati, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, blah 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 blah, the whole Jeep, that whole ginormous contraption. Chrysler's going to go all electric by 20 something, but that doesn't mean that Ram is going to be all electric or Jeep is going to be all electric, etc. So it's going to be a lot of time there.
And ID Buzz is rolling out in 2024, so you got a while to wait.
How will we get with the VF9? Join us tomorrow and we should know then. Probably not a great deal, but we'll see how it goes. I am really intrigued to drive one because it seems like there's a lot of money behind VinFast. And that's really the key to any startup success is how much cash is in the bank. Which is why I'm a little bit less excited about Fisker and Canoo and some of these other companies. There's not a lot of money there. Yeah. And I'm a bit more bullish on VinFast and Rivian and obviously Tesla because there's actually money here. So there's enough money to make a go of it. And developing a new vehicle and dealing with the homologation for the US market is very, very expensive. So that's an important thing. Here's one for you. So this is an interesting one. Supra 2.0 or RX 300 all-wheel drive?
RX 300?
That
doesn't exist.
Not in the US, but isn't that, I think in...
You're comparing a Supra to an RX?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
Do you mean RC? I think they mean RC.
That was no all-wheel drive RC, is there?
Yeah, there is. It's 300. Oh. That's a 300.
Oh, there we go. It's the RC 300.
There's a 300, which is the 3.5 or 2.5 V6 with all-wheel drive, and then there's the 300 turbo.
Yes.
And then there's 350 with the V6, the big V6.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't see the point in the Supra 2.0. I didn't find it to be worth it when I drove it. I was like, I'd rather just save some money and get like a GR86. But with the RC, which again I assume is what you mean, that's a nicer car on the inside, but it is also on the older side, so it's kind of getting on the years with its age. But you've driven. I've never driven one, so I don't know.
If you want more Toyota in your next vehicle, it's going to be the Lexus, obviously, because the
100%
the Supra is half Toyota in the way that Toyota paid for half of it, but absolutely 0% Toyota in the actual car. The styling is 100% Toyota on the outside and 0% Toyota practically on the inside. So there's that. But I do have to say that the best tuned BMWs are the ones where Toyota's people have tweaked the handling and suspension tuning because I prefer the way the Supra drives to the Z4, oddly enough. And I like the way that the RC handles and feels. It's just slow.
Yeah.
That's the complaint. Oh, that's a good one. Do we have to work around photo bombers? Whoops. Do we have to work around photo bombers on the show floor all the time?
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's also fun when there's a ton of people watching you record your video and you're like, stop looking at me.
Best midsize truck of 2023. Is going to be between. Let's see. What do you think?
Tacoma. We should know something about new Tacoma by then.
Probably not going to be on sale though.
We're not on sale though. Yeah.
So I think it's Ranger, it's Ford or GM.
Definitely the GMs, but they're it sounds like they're going to be more expensive. That's the problem.
Yeah, the new turbo seems cool though.
They look good.
Like the 2.7 liter turbo and 10 speed. The Ranger should be here.
But it's even the new Ranger from if it's going to be like the one overseas, it's not even like a major update. It doesn't look like it's not a full redesign. So I'm like, I'm not excited about it.
So more excited about the GM. So what about GM versus Gladiator?
I don't mind the Gladiator. I think it's cool. It's a cool concept, but I know so many people out there who are like, that's dumb. That's like a dumb car. I don't know why.
The wait list is extreme.
Which is, yeah.
MSRP is high, too.
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah. Maverick Hybrid, if you can get one, buy one, and then sell it to me because I want one. So, I love the Maverick Hybrid, and I think Ford really underestimated how great the Maverick Hybrid would be. They're selling so many of them, they won't even bother to contemplate things like all-wheel drive on the hybrid, which I think they really should.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What discontinued vehicle do you wish wasn't discontinued? That's a good question.
Stinger, which hasn't been officially, but it is. Kia Stinger. But I mean, we know it makes sense that it's not sticking around, but that was a cool car.
I wish that Cadillac would bring back a big sedan.
Yeah, the Celestiq is too extreme.
Too extreme. I wish I wonder if this I'll call this counting because I'm doing the manning the comment section, but the CT9 that was supposed to exist. Because we had the CT6, there's supposed to be like CT8, CT9.
Yeah.
I wish that had actually finished because supposedly it got really quite far along in its development cycle.
Also, the Jaguar XJ replacement, which was supposed to be EV.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we even saw prototypes.
Which also is funny because I think it's the president of Jaguar Land Rover, who was the one who came on the scene during that process of them developing it. He was the one who canceled it, and he just got fired today.
Oh, yeah.
He just got let go.
Oh, the Ioniq should have stayed. I agree because the Ioniq is the most efficient, affordable hybrid in America. I wish it kind of stayed. It didn't really fit with the Ioniq naming scheme. I'm surprised they didn't put a new name on it though. They just could have kept it around as something else. Just stick it there in the corner.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. Let's see here.
The Buick Regal Torex.
Here's a good one, though. How much better are Ultium batteries than Bolt batteries as far as materials longevity? We don't have any good statistics on this, but we do know that GM has spent a lot of time with Ultium to try and make the platform repairable. And that's probably the biggest advantage with Ultium is the modularity of the system and the fact that they supposedly designed this so that way if new chemistries come out, it's easier to adapt into the system. And it's going to be easier for dealers to replace modules and send them back to a centralized facility for maintenance and diagnostics and things like that. The downside to Ultium appears to be weight. They're all really heavy.
Mm-hmm. You got to answer this question about the Grand Highlander. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, we don't know about it.
The only thing I know is I've heard from insiders, but this is all speculation, that it will on the inside be as big as a Lincoln Navigator, which doesn't seem possible because it's going to be basically a Telluride sized vehicle on the outside if what we think is going to happen is going to happen. But
that's almost possible because I mean a Telluride is actually about as roomy or roomier than a Tahoe. Well, if we're talking about legroom and headroom, not width in the cabin, but
right,
yeah.
I
am more interested and excited in the Grand Highlander than the Sequoia. Yeah. I sort of wish they had just killed off the Sequoia and moved that R&D money to the Grand Highlander and made it look like a Sequoia because the Sequoia looks really good.
It does look really good. we were chauffeured around one today, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's not great on the inside, but it's
Yeah,
lovely on
pretty
the outside.
tight
Yeah.
there.
I purposely got in the third row because I was like, I want to remind myself of how bad this is back here, and it's not great. So
What brands will offer online buying? Well, clearly it's going to be, I mean, true online buying where you buy the car 100% clear through is really only going to be with the startup EV companies.
like Polestar,
True. Well, not even Polestar technically, because there's a dealer involved. So it's going to be Tesla and Rivian and the other random EV startups that are out there. But Tesla is obviously the biggest. Rivian is the next. Because with Polestar, the transaction happens with the dealer. So the dealers, the sales location, they're the ones that bring the contacts to you. That's close, because it's theoretically no haggle, etc. But there is a dealer involved, and then everybody else just sort of pushes an order to a dealer and then prays that they don't screw you.
yeah. Even Ford wants to do it though. Jim Farley he keeps talking about how he wishes a dealership would go away. But
Oh yeah.
he can't.
Every auto manufacturer
They
wishes, they won't tell you this officially, but every auto manufacturer wishes the dealers would go away. Let's see here. The Toyota nickel metal hydride batteries. This is an interesting question that I get an awful lot. So, nickel metal hydride batteries actually make a lot of sense in hybrids because a hybrid battery is used differently than an electric vehicle battery. You wouldn't want an EV with a nickel metal hydride battery, but there's absolutely no problem with a nickel battery in a hybrid. Sorry, an EV wouldn't want a high nickel metal battery. And the reason here is energy density is the reason we use lithium-ion batteries in EVs. You need a lot of energy in a small space. So the energy density is a concern there. But actual weight of the battery pack is not that much higher for a 1.5 kilowatt hour nickel metal pack. The materials are more easily sourced. They're not as constrained because the huge rise in EVs has caused a huge demand for lithium and cobalt and all the other things that go into those batteries. So materials are easier and less expensive for nickel metal batteries. The batteries themselves end up a lot less expensive. There's also not much of a weight penalty because even though a nickel metal battery may be a little bit heavier than a corresponding lithium battery, the difference is small, and most lithium batteries, the design, they have to be cooled. And usually it's liquid cooling. And by the time you've added the coolant pump and the coolant and the channels, it actually ends up heavier than an air-cooled nickel metal battery. And because the nickel metal battery is not as energy dense, it can be air-cooled. There are also some advantages as far as cold weather performance, etc., for nickel batteries. So that's the big reason that we still see them being used in so many Toyota hybrids. The entire picture is just very rational and pragmatic, but it doesn't sound exciting. And so if you're nerdy and you want the latest battery, then you want the lithium battery, even though it's not actually going to do anything for you different. So that's the big reason there. Bolt is never going to convert to Ultium. They've already said that. Let's see here. This is a good one. Do you foresee manufacturers working to minimize dealer role of EVs?
I think they want to.
They want to,
They
yeah.
really want, like you said, they really want to. It's just they have a lot of power. There's
Yeah.
a lot of these dealer groups out there that are just loaded with cash and loaded with influence, and
they have laws to protect them. That's the big thing. So I mean, it's like the way franchise laws work. It's just very difficult to unring that bell once you have the dealers. Getting rid of them is just going to be very, very difficult. Trying to reform some of the dealer models, I think, might be the best you can do. How do you feel about the Hornet? Since you are a zillennial, and this is targeted at young crossover shoppers.
I've said it before. I mean, yeah, it's more affordable than the Tonale, but I prefer the look of the Tonale. I'd rather just get that, but it's going to be more expensive, so that's a factor. I mean, I like the fact that they're often the plug-in hybrid. They're all going to be somewhat quick.
Mm-hmm.
They're not all going to do, like, the base one's still going to be a decently quick car. But
I'm surprised that the turbo being standard is rather shocking.
But it's tiny on the inside, is it not? I mean, it's like subcompact size on the inside, right?
I mean, it is. It's Seltos, HRV, CHR, that kind of category vehicle. So, but under $30,000 starting. So right in price wise, right in line with Crosstrek and all of those. I am very excited. I am sad that it's not going to get the tax credit though.
Right.
Clearly, when they designed it, they thought it would, because it used. I mean, under the old rules, it would have, but now, not going to get the tax credit because it's built in Italy. I am much more excited about that than the Alpha. Oddly enough. because it's going to be affordable.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think Alpha is not excited about the Dodge, though.
No, I wouldn't be either. I'd be a little upset about that.
Yeah. So no rumors about Honda doing any sort of plug-in hybrids for the Odyssey. In fact, actually, rather surprisingly, at the CRV hybrid launch, Honda was pretty bearish on plug-in hybrids, and they basically said there's not a lot of R&D money going to plug-in hybrids for anything. So,
and somebody did ask earlier about Genesis too about that. Are they going to do hybrids? They've said no. They're going straight to electric for everything.
Yeah.
So,
for Genesis, for luxury brands, it makes sense to go EV.
Sense, yeah.
But yeah, no plug-in hybrids there. When to expect a Traverse EV? Probably not for a really long time.
Yeah.
The 500e is coming to the US. So they've already basically said that. I think actually in that many words. Like today they finally said they've been dribbling things out for a while.
So if you've been wanting the 500 to come back, it's happening. And I like it. I like the 500, the newest one. It looks, I mean, it's still very much a 500, vehicle. But the interior is much better looking than the old one. Right. And this will be a fun little city car to bop around town in, kind of like a mini Mini Cooper SE or something like that. We'll see what the range is going to be, but that one's interesting. They need something. 500X, that can't be the only car in their lineup. They need something else.
Yep. And yep, here's a good thing. The modern cars being reliable on average. Yes, on average, modern cars are definitely more reliable than they've ever been before. And we can see that bearing out in everybody's numbers, whether you want to believe JD Power or not, whether you're a Consumer Reports fan. New cars are just more reliable than they ever have been before. And it's logical because materials engineering is getting better, the ability to design cars digitally and make sure things work, and better understanding of materials just makes everything better. So, let's see here. Is the Buick brand going to disappear? What's your prediction there?
They're going all electric. That's what they've said. So they're not going away. They're definitely going to be different in terms of what they've been for a long time. Because they had the Wildcat concept and like one other concept, the Electra or whatever. That's going to be, I think, all electric. They need some excitement there. I just had the Envision. It was nice, but kind of boring. But looks good.
Yeah. Will the Wagoneer 4xe? Yes, it will definitely be a plug-in hybrid. They've already specified that. So.
And they've said 500 is the
goal. 500 is the goal, and that is the key thing. Is when Stellantis is talking about long-range things with plugs, they mean plug-in hybrids, because that's really the way you get to realistic 500 miles of range in something like that. That's really going to be the only way right now, unless you have a medium-duty chassis platform and more batteries than you can imagine. Let's see here. I don't know what a Microlino is. Next time you're out, drive the new Microlino. I have to check that out. I don't know. We will check that out and let you know. Let's see here. Thoughts on solid state batteries. We actually wrote up a piece on that, so you can go check that out on the website, alexnautis.com. That's up there as a featured thing. I'm intrigued by solid state batteries because they are a logical future, but the problem is that solid state batteries are not going to be the solution to everything that some people want them to be. So solid state batteries are going to increase energy density, but they're not going to increase weight in terms of grams per kilowatt hour of battery. So the vehicle is still going to be very heavy. There's a minor improvement in curb weight for a 100 kilowatt hour battery, so the car was going to weigh about the same. You may be able to fit a bigger battery in a smaller car, so that could be a definite advantage there. But there are also some critical things that they're working through, most notably catching on fire has been a problem. Dendrites form through the solid state material of the battery. That's something they've been working on for a long time. And for most of the early solid state designs, it was not a question of if they would catch on fire, it was a question of when they would catch on fire. And it does appear that great progress has been made there, and we are going to be getting a production solid state battery from Toyota. Looks like they're going to be the first, and we should see that very, very soon. Yeah. What we see it in, I think, is going to be a little bit of an unknown. I think they pointed to a hybrid getting the first plug-in, the first battery. I'm sure someone will correct us there. But we don't know all the details just yet. Weight is not going to be, again, fixed, but it is going to have a positive impact on battery lifetime depending on the exact chemistry. Charging rates are going to be good, but they're still going to be limited by the charging station. So charging stations have to be able to support these fast charge rates. That is probably the trickiest and most limiting component. Um, how many vehicles have solid state batteries in the future? I don't know, because there's still going to be a place for lithium ion batteries in inexpensive vehicles. You're not going to run out tomorrow and buy a Nissan Leaf with a solid state battery, and it's probably going to be quite some time until we see affordable EVs using solid state technology. That's definitely a big thing there.
And I misspoke earlier. The Jaguar Land Rover boss has resigned for personal reasons. He was
Personal
fired.
reasons. Oh.
Yeah. Sad.
So he was fired.
Fired.
So here we go. So can you help me influence Hyundai by making a Tucson N? I wish I could, and that sounds very logical, but it also sounds like something that they might not ever do. So
There's an N line if you want to look like
we'll
you have
see.
one.
Yeah. I am a little bit sad that they didn't try one, because they could have jammed a 2.5-liter turbo
Yeah,
in there.
like
That could have been fun, but we don't know.
And it's weird because the last generation, for example, Kia Sportage had last generation you got the 2-liter turbo as like the high output engine. There is no equivalent other than the hybrids now, and same with the Tucson. You used to be able to get a 1.6 turbo. Well, I guess that's the equivalent to what they have now. But it's interesting they've switched gears on that a little bit. But an N would be cool. But they would. That's the other weird thing though, because the Sonata N line is the one with the 2.5. There is no Sonata N, but we already have a Tucson N line. It doesn't have the 2.5, so that would have to be the N. That whole layering of that, I don't know. It's very confusing.
N to N line's weird, and why the Sonata N line was not an N,
Right.
we don't know. And they could have put all-wheel drive on it, but they didn't. And lots of questions, not a lot of answers. With more non-Tesla EVs on the road, what do you think about charging infrastructure and reliability, especially now that Tesla's started to occupy CCS chargers? How was your charging adventure in your Kona, and the other things you've had there?
I went to look around, see where all the 350 kilowatt chargers were for the Ioniq 5. Around Atlanta, they're all on the outskirts of town. There aren't really any. There are a few inside, but none of them worked when I went to them. And they were cheap though. The ones that worked were like I paid $6 to charge it, and that's lovely. It's much less than gas, but otherwise, I don't know. The infrastructure. There's plenty of places to charge in most major cities now. If you're not in need of a 350 kilowatt speed, but if you're out in somewhere else further out, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's why they're spread out. The faster chargers are in between cities. They're not as much in the cities because again, you're not going on road trips from across town to another part of town. So it's, that's why they're spread out like that. So I don't know. The reliability is the issue because the one near me, there's 8 stalls. 2 of them are on average working. The rest are always broken. So it's like if they can't fix that, that's the problem.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's move along to a different one. Why don't they make Prado and 4Runner interchangeable? I am going to be intrigued to see if we do. We don't know what the next 4Runner is going to be exactly.
I've heard that they are going to this time around possibly
might.
be the same thing.
Or coordinated so that way one comes first and eventually the other one moves over to the other side.
Yeah.
But I have always wondered that because right now in the US, the Land Cruiser Prado is the Lexus GX. So there is a North American cross. It's just not the 4Runner. The reason, as it was explained to me, that's why that works that way is because the American consumer wanted something that was less expensive, blah, blah, blah. Interesting twist, which I think is funny for Tacoma. The reason that we get Tacoma and Hilux split off from one another was supposedly that Tacoma was supposed to focus on drivability, on-road driving dynamics, and be less focused on durability and off-road driving dynamics, which is what Hilux was all about. Even though theoretically that's what all the Tacoma shoppers love about their Tacoma is the off-road ability and the TRD off-road versions and then dependability, durability, etc.
Yeah.
And those were supposedly lower priorities when they did the North American Tacoma. So,
And I've got TRD Pros running around everywhere.
go figure. I always thought that was kind of weird.
I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that was the priority there.
E-Boxer. We don't know what the hybrid and plug-in hybrid plans are for Crosstrek, but my guess is that there will be a resurrection of the plug-in hybrid system, but not a regular hybrid system in it. What's your guess? It's a crystal ball.
I think we're more likely to see the plug-in than
Yeah.
the regular hybrid. It just makes more sense at this point. Because the current one still offers a regular hybrid, correct? Yeah.
No, not in the U.S. You
Not
can just
in the
get
US,
just
like-
the plug-in hybrid, no regular hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Because they switched. They were like had it, then they didn't have it, then they. I feel like they had it again, then they dropped
Yeah.
it again. And it's like they.
have you heard whether the EX90 is actually going to be here? I would be
think-
surprised if it was, but it might
Oh,
be.
here.
Yeah,
Oh,
here.
I don't think so. Because
I mean, it was in Sweden, so I'm betting that they did not bring one here.
that was so recently. I feel like probably not. I don't think. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
They're here. Volvo is gonna be here. Wait, are they? Yeah, they're gonna be here. They have a very small booth though, so I don't know. Maybe we'll let you know though. We haven't heard anything. I feel like we would have heard the North American.
Yeah, I think we would have heard.
Yeah.
Worst dealership experiences. Oh, so much fun.
I'll tell you mine. I got mine.
Volkswagen probably had horrible Volkswagen dealer things going on in the 2000s. That was not great.
Hyundai, when I got my Veloster N, the dealership was run by a father and a son. The son was the sales guy who was selling me the car. He kept calling it a Type N.
A Type N.
He kept calling it a Type N. I was like, He also smelled like pig pen looks in the Peanuts. That character, that's what he smelled like. He smelled like trash. He obviously didn't know what he was talking about. I kept having to like correct him, and then eventually the day I went in to go actually sign the paperwork, he was nowhere to be found. They were like, "Oh yeah, he was fired because there was money laundering involved," and
He fired his own son. Wow, how about that?
Yeah, well,
At least-
the father was fired too. Both of them were gone. So like people were scrambling around. They're like, "We don't know what's going on, but someone else is going to help you get the car today." And I was a college graduate at the time, so I was trying to get the college grad rebate or $500 off. So whatever. But then he was like, "Well, we need like this type of paperwork. And we need this, and we were like, "Oh, you didn't tell us that. I thought my diploma was enough." And they're like, "No," and it was just a mess. And we still
Did you
got
get it?
We still got it. Yeah, I
Oh,
still,
good, okay.
I still got it, but it was just like, ooh,
Well, that's good. At least you got it.
shabby experience.
Huh.
So
That's a good question here. Is the Dodge Hornet four-wheel drive in every mode? It is my understanding, yes. And this is a through-the-road hybrid, I guess you'd say, where there's an electric motor in the back and the engine is up front. So similar to what we find in the Mini product line, and of course every plug-in hybrid and hybrid Toyota that exists in North America right now, except for the trucks. What it will be like, I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect out of Stellantis. This likely borrows some software programming and dynamic programming from the French side of Stellantis, who's had a lot of plug-in hybrids actually for quite some time in Europe and EVs. So that's probably where some of the expertise came from on that. But this is a system designed specifically for Hornet and Denali. So it's the 2-liter turbo engine, the same global 2-liter turbo that we find in other Jeep products, only turned 90 degrees. And then the motor unit, we don't know too many details about. Battery supplier, probably the same one that is supplying the 4xe products, but we won't know exactly how that's going to go. And with that, I think it is probably time to sign off. So do you want to pick a last question here? Let's just pick one here. Random stab.
random stab.
Oh, apparently the doesn't go terribly far back. Sorry, everybody with old comments, we can't get to you.
Let's see.
Miro, what do you think the best 2023 midsize truck will be?
We did
We
answer
did
that.
answer that, but what is we can sign off with your statement again. Go in GM.
I'm going the GM Twins, but I like the Canyon look a little bit better. But again, pricing might be an issue. We don't know yet. But the one that's available first is like $67,000.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess a top Tacoma TRD Pro is probably not far off of that, is it? I don't know though.
Yep.
We'll see. They look nice. Good interiors. We sat in one at the Detroit show.
Mhm.
They're nice.
Here's a good one, actually. The Jeep 4xEs will qualify for a portion of the tax credit because anything that is built in North America gets half of the credit. Half of the credit is country of manufacture for the vehicle, which includes Canada, Mexico, and the US, and the other half is battery sourcing. So battery sourcing is where everybody seems to be falling apart right now. But manufacturer, they're going to qualify. So Bolt, Equinox, they're going to get half the credit, $3,750. Volvo EX90 will get 750 because it'll be built in the Carolinas as long as you get the base model. Certain versions of the Lightning will get the credit because they're going to be inexpensive enough. If they're under the price cap, then you'll get it because there's a price cap involved as well. Leaf should get it. The Bolt EUV, that's going to be basically it. And the 4xEs will get some portion of it. Audi Q5 plug-in hybrid, yep, that should get part of the credit because it's going to be under the cost. So that is important there.
Certain Mach-Es, did you say that?
Mach-Es will get half the credit. Exactly how many Mach-Es get the full credit and how many Lightnings get the full credit, we don't know. Ford has said that some will. So if you are interested in the tax credit, you can delay and you can wait. You might want to push until January. We should get clarity at the end of December as to exactly how that's all going to go. And there's probably going to be some sort of labeling scheme or VIN lookup thing, because the way that Ford has described this is that you could have two Mach-Es on the dealer lot, and one will get the full credit, one will get a half credit, and if it's too expensive, you know, one Lightning won't get any credit at all. So it's going to be a brave new world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone's asking if we're going to be live streaming tomorrow. We will not be live streaming tomorrow, but our first bit of content from the show actually will be coming out tonight, Prius. So stay tuned for that. We're actually in an hour going to be heading over there to go to that reveal. And
so don't close your browser.
Don't close your browser. Don't go to bed
6
yet.
p.m.
6 p.m. our time. Yeah.
Yep.
So 9 p.m. over on the East Coast, and then tomorrow we've got all the other stuff coming out. Fiat.
As long as we
Kia.
can edit quickly. So
Yes.
must get to the editing. We'll see everybody later. Bye.
Bye bye.